So in today's lesson, I'm just going to show you very briefly an introduction to Illustrator, some helpful tools, and you are going to be able to create just a random creature for yourself using some of these key tools. This right here is my little thing. Don't know what to call him, but I'm going to show you how to get started. So first off, in Illustrator, when it opens, you'll be able to make a new file. There you go. For preset details, make sure that you're using a letter. It should be an option to make it a letter size. Always name your file. In this case, I'm going to call this Illustrator Creature. And we're not going to go too far into this right now, but when you are looking at the width and height of your file, you don't have just pixels. You have pixels, points, picas, inches, feet, like all this stuff. For this one today, just keep it at points. Don't change any of the sizing. If you want, you can also make it a landscape view or portrait view, an orientation, but I wouldn't go too crazy with any of the actual presets right now, just keeping it as simple as possible. Then I'm going to press create. And this right now is my blank file. So the first thing you want to make sure of is up here is our control panel. And I'm going to start off with just sort of explaining some of the simple parts of this. In our options, we have our selection tool on the left-hand side. And next to that, we have our direct selection tool. Another feature we're going to be using today is our shape option. Right now is on my rectangle tool. If I hold that down, I can also get a rounded rectangle, an ellipse, a polygon, and a star and a flare. What I'm first going to start with is I'm just going to start off with a nice basic rectangle, nothing too crazy. So clicking on that, I have here my fill and my stroke key. This information all up here is also actually over here on the side as well under appearance. So basically what that means is if I make a box right now, I click and drag like that, the fill is white and the stroke or the edge is black. If I want to change that, either up top or here on the side, I can simply just click on the white and change to any color I want. And here's blue, tan, purple. I'm going to go for this sort of orange color. And my stroke is, again, the sides. Right now it's on black. I can also use this option, which is the white with a red through it. That means no stroke at all. So let's say if I go for a red stroke, I can also increase how thick it is. So next to stroke, it says 1 point right now. If I want to make it thicker, I can increase the number. And by adding it to 6 points, my border is now thicker. I am going to just stick with 2 points. And then after I'm done with my box, I'm simply going to click on my selection tool. And I can now move it. So this right here is my base. So I'm going to click on my selection tool. So let's say if I wanted to make this bigger or smaller. Right off the bat, I actually have my points along the corners, so I can make it taller, narrower. I can use the corners. If I hold down my shift key, I can make it bigger, holding all the proportions in place, or smaller. And I also, if I hold it out a little bit, I can rotate it. So I'm just going to do that, just making sure it's nice and straight. And so when I look at this right now, what I actually want to do is I want to curve, let's say I wanted to curve the corners of this, okay? What we're noticing here is under each point is something called an anchor. And when I hold my mouse over, you'll actually notice a little curved line underneath it. I cannot use my selection tool, but instead with my direct selection tool, it even says I can select and adjust anchor points and segments to reshape paths. So what that means now is I'm going to click on that. And let's say I only wanted to curve one side. I only want to curve this corner. I can click on my anchor, and what happens is that now only this corner has this point. And I can click and drag, and I can turn that into a curve, like that. Once it hits the red, you can't go any further. So let's say I wanted to just curve that, like that. Now let's say I wanted to curve multiple points. Let me just undo. Let's say I wanted to curve both the top two corners. With, again, my direct selection tool, my little white arrow option, I click on my first anchor on the left, and if I hold down my shift key, I can select another anchor. And now those 2 points are both showing. So when I make a selection on them, both of them will be affected. And just like that, I'm able to get a nice round shape. So you can do that on all 4 corners, 1 corner, 2 corners, whatever you want to do. Then we can start kind of building our shapes. So in this case, I have sort of this long, narrow section. And I want to, I don't know, I'll give it some triangle ears. So if I select my shape option, the triangle would most likely appear with the polygon tool because it's not a rectangle, it's not an ellipse, it's not a star. So with the polygon tool. Now you're going to notice right off the bat when you start using the polygon tool the first time, you're going to click that right there is not a triangle. That is an octagon. It has 8 sides. So if you want to control how many points or how many sides your polygon has, I'm simply going to do one little click on my screen, and I'm able to control the radius and the sides. I'm not going to deal with the radius right now. I'm going to change the number of sides in my polygon. So a triangle has 3 sides, so I'm going to go down to 3, or you can also even just type it in. Click OK. And right there, I have my first polygon. And then I can simply drag that. I can move around and resize like that. Just like in Photoshop, making sure you're selected on that, you can then go to Edit and copy, or Command C, and then to paste would be Command V. And then just realign it up to the front, like that. Just like that, kind of messing around a little bit. Now, one thing I don't like is I would actually like it if these ears were appearing from behind, if you want to change up the order. What you can do is selecting a shape in particular, in this case, this shape, my curved one, on the side should be your arrange button. I want to bring it to the front, and it now covers up those 2 sections of ears I didn't like. So I got myself a long neck and head. I got my 2 ears. So I'm going to use some eyes. So again, with my shape tool, I'm going to go into my ellipse. And I'm going to change the fill and stroke right now because I know I want my fill and stroke to be different colors. So for fill, I'm going just to do a black, and my stroke I will make white for now. And click and drag. And again, if I want, Command C to copy, Command V to paste, and simply move that. Something you might notice also is as I'm doing this, these intersect lines come, and that will also kind of help you be able to make sure everything is lined up properly. Like that. So when I look at this, maybe I think, oh, the black is a little too thick. So if I want the white to be thicker, for the stroke, I can increase the thickness and then becomes like that. So I want to change that so it's not too wonky of 2 eyes. And again, I want to bring this to 9 points, like that, and then just click off. And already I'm kind of getting something interesting. Something now I want to do is, let's say I want to give it a nose. So again, if I wanted to, maybe I want to use my rounded rectangle tool, click and drag. I can use my selection tool just to kind of move it in place. So this kind of looks like a mouth now. So again, if I want to, I can just change the fill color. I'm going to change it to like a brown color, and I'm going to get rid of the stroke entirely just by making none with that. Okay. And then for the mouth, again, what I can actually do as well is up here, I have an arc. I can also use a line segment tool. And just like before, the fill and stroke, you can always change that. I'm just going to have a little basic mouth like that, nothing too crazy. My fill, I will make it red. Again, and make it a bit thicker so I can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. Like that. If I want to straighten it out, I can simply just do that. And something cool you can do with your line option actually, and I'll show it on a different one, is so right here, this is my line, it's straight. With your line options, you can actually mess around with how that line will appear. So instead of the uniform straight, you can create curved lines that go back in on either side. You can also have some interesting textures like that. So you can change the appearance of what the line actually is. So don't be afraid just to like mess around with that too. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So again, click and delete. Now, let's say I like how this looks, but I want to move it over for some reason. Instead of having to click and drag everything over individually, this is actually a really cool trick with Illustrator, is with making sure you're on your selection tool, you can actually click and drag to make a box around your object. And just like that, everything is selected. And then you can actually move it all at once, like that. So I'm going to move them down a little bit right there. And then all my shapes are still individual. So again, I'm just going to keep sort of messing around, kind of making, maybe give them like a tail or something. I can also mess around with the uniform shape here as well. Might not show up as well, but so I don't like how that looks. Actually, I'm going to delete that, and using my rectangle tool, like that, I can then kind of curve it. The one thing it does take a lot of is remembering to always reselect your selection tool key to make sure that you don't grab something you don't mean to. So if I want to send this to the back, I can then go to Arrange, Send to Back, like that. And then again, if I want to kind of curve this in, I'm kind of making like a fox, I guess, here. I don't know. Using my direct selection tool, I click on the two anchor points, hold the shift to select both of them. Like that. Yeah. Just like that. So again, this was another creature I made with that. I started even playing around with antlers as well. And so I would just suggest kind of create a creature of any sort that you want. Once you feel like you are done, you're pretty comfortable using these different tools and playing with some of the curves as well. In order to actually file, in order to actually save it and post it, of course, always go to File. You're going to go to Save. Always make sure, save on a computer. Always make sure that you do save it first off as an AI or Illustrator file. This way we can always go back into Illustrator and work on it. So I'm going to save that first on my desktop as an AI file. I'll press OK. And then what I'm going to do is File. If I go to Save As, and this isn't part of the update, some computers might do this, some of them might not, is when I try to save it, my only options in Save As are a PDF or these sort of weird files as well. If that is the option, you can't save it as anything else. You can also go to File, Export As. And then in Export As, you can save it as either a PNG or a JPEG file. And then you'll be able to post that on Google Classroom.